Welcome to the Software Lifecycle Stories podcast. We bring you stories of what worked and sometimes what did not in the course of discovering, designing, developing, delivering, and using software based solutions, as shared by practitioners who went through these situations. Welcome to this episode of the Software Lifecycle Stories. I am Sivaguru. Today, I am in conversation with my colleague from PM Power Consulting, Anantha Natarajan, who prefers to be called Anand. We spoke about many topics, including whether software development is an engineering discipline, trusting one's feelings, creating functionally satisfying solutions to make a difference for the users, lessons from building something ahead of time, becoming and being a coach when better comes before good, as he says, detaching oneself in delicate coaching situations, and he also shares one tip for developing empathy. And lastly, about playing bridge and developing software. Listen on. Yeah. Hi, Anand. Welcome to the show. Yeah, this has been a long time. Somehow we've not been able to do this earlier. And finally, we are here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So welcome to the show. And as you know the format very well, we start with a self-introduction of the guest.
Okay. Thank you, Shiv, again. Self-introduction. Okay. I like to always start from where I am from. So, born in a small town called Virudhunagar in south of Tamil Nadu, for a very loving family. Lucky to have had, great parents, brother and a sister. And it's a small town. So, it's typical small town life. Did all my schooling till pre-university there. Then did my engineering following that. Then at the end of it, didn't feel like an engineer. So luckily the IT was just starting at the time. I'm talking 1981. So I got into IT, and I actually partly thanks to one of our fellow PM Powerians, colleagues, JV. He was doing his postgraduate. He said, Anand, you should go attend this interview. IT has a future. So that was a good thing. And I just sort of, I started working with Tata Motors, or earlier called Telco, in Jamshedpur. And that was a great experience. I think I just fell in love with computing and programming and stuff like that, software development as such. Spent a few years there. Then I spent about a year in Asian Paints in Mumbai. Then went to Australia for better fortunes, I guess, at the time. Planned to be there for 2-3 years, but ended up spending 13 odd years there. Got married to Radhika while I was there. Then worked for different domains, different companies. I was heading an IT function for an organization there, for an association there. Came back to India. I wanted to start something on my own, but I thought before that, let me get exposure to what does it mean to be in a startup. So I joined a startup, software services startup for about, they had products as well. There was about 5 years. After 5 years, it remained a startup, about 100 odd people. So I decided to move out and got my exposure into quality and process excellence there. Because till then, my career was mostly into software delivery and development. Then worked for a few years a couple of years at HP, and then Fidelity Investments before coming on board PM Power Consulting. So being a consultant, coach, trainer for the last 7 years. Yeah, time flies. Yeah. So that's probably about, my career. And I've got a, 24-year-old son who's started working now. And unfortunately, my wife passed away a couple of years back. So I'm trying to rediscover life, figure out, where I go from here.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that.
No, that's all right. Yeah. That's where I am now. A little bit about myself.
Yeah, very interesting trajectory in terms of your career.
Mm-hmm.
Then the first curiosity question is when you said that didn't feel like being an engineer and got into IT.
Mm.
And later on, you said you got into quality and process excellence.
Yeah.
Now, when one talks about process excellence and all that, isn't there also this one of the ways in which we call this whole practice as software engineering? So, did it disappoint you that software also became engineering?
Actually, two things maybe I should say here. I think I've lived my life through feelings a lot. So I trust my feelings often, probably more than I should. So when I said I know I didn't feel like an engineer after a few years, it was, I think, being a mechanical engineer. I think I had too much fun in college, playing lots of sports and, lots of bridge, lots of hockey. So that kept me away. So it was more about, mechanical engineer, I guess I should say, right? I think engineering, it's yes, we keep talking about software as an engineering discipline. I guess it is, but somehow when I did my software programming, I never felt that way, right? It was about how I felt about what I wrote, and I obviously created some more methods of myself. But I never used to mind, throw away what I wrote and then rewrote it. If I feel I can do something better, I'll always try doing that better. So I don't know if I still don't know if it is actually engineering. Yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah, I mean, I would also, I'm still confused about whether software is engineering or is it computer science or is it craftsmanship or is it an art and all that. But I guess one thing that I have also realized is that, I mean, no offense to mechanical engineers, I have a lot of respect for them.
Mm-hmm.
Software development is no way mechanical.
Yeah.
Yeah, pun intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you got into software,
Yeah.
and you said that you were with normal business enterprises, like automotive, and you said Asian Paints also, right?
Yeah.
And then also heading an IT function. So, what has been your own learning or transformation from being in, let's say, one of these non-IT organizations, as well as heading an IT function? I don't know whether it was in an IT company or a non-IT company.
It was a non-IT company, yeah.
Yeah. So, what was your experience in terms of relating to the business and vice versa? The business relating to IT or even understanding what IT can do for them?
I guess, if I think those days, if we remind an engineer for a long time, I used to write programs even when I had about 10, 15 years experience, right? I didn't have a problem with that. So journey has been gradual that way, right? I think the first challenge was, when they made me a lead a team. So I realized, oh my goodness, it's just not about, what I have to do. I've got to somehow make sure that the whole team delivers. So I was obviously initially in that illusion that, I'll get the team to do what I want them to do. So went through that. So that was one part of the journey, I guess. I think the second part of the journey is, I think seeing the ability to see the bigger picture of what we are trying to achieve through IT, and you realize the role of IT as an enabler, right? And it is supposed to make people's life better, right? That's how I used to think of IT those days, and that really helped me. So when I go to business, I'm thinking about, okay, how is it going to make business better, and how is this going to help the clients, the end clients? How is it going to make their life better? And that philosophy, I think, always helped me through, right? May it be even with writing an IT strategy or trying to figure out, how to optimize our infrastructure, whatever. So I think this is always a guiding principle that helped me, I guess. Now that you ask me, how does IT make things better for the people, business, clients? So maybe that was the shift in thinking from the early days of, IT for the sake of IT to IT as an enabler.
That's nice. So when you had to go and either propose a solution, or while discussing with the client, your customers, the business users, etc., were there any instances where they had a wow moment when said, oh, we never looked at it like that?
Yeah.
Coming in as an external person and suggesting how they could improve the way of working. Are there any such stories?
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I can think of one which comes to my mind as we speak. This was a simple one. I was working for the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Australia at the time. And they had this simple requirement, right? Where they want to know some of the chartered accountants who live in a neighborhood, right? And we used to have this, query that runs in the back end, because we used to say, it takes time to go and scan and then, search the database and come back. Yeah, those days. So we had online things, but mainly for transactions, right? So this kind of a thing was done in the background. So it used to take them 24 hours or sometimes even 24 hours mostly, right? If it's over a weekend, it could be 48 hours because we didn't do any of that over the weekend. So interestingly, when I went to talk to the actual user, at that time I was, I think, a development manager in this company. I was not the IT head quite. They said, hey, I understood what they were trying to do. Someone would call from any member of the public would call and ask for, can you tell me someone, a chartered accountant who lives in my neighborhood? I need these services. And these people are on the phone. And what they would do is, okay, they will take down their phone number and say, okay, I'll call you back in 2 days. Just think about now the person who called, where they are. I mean, they are just off to somebody else, right? And the association is supposed to help the chartered accountants who are their, clients in some way. So we figured out, and when I went and asked the customer, they said, look, the end user, they said, look, Anand, what we would like is I should be able to put that phone on hold for a minute, respond to them after a minute. That's what's the need.
Wow.
They said, otherwise it doesn't make sense, right? So
4 hours to 1 minute.
Yeah. That's exactly, for 24 hours to 1 minute. They said, look, if you can't do that, this service is not effective and we are not serving the people, right, who are coming up with this query. So we went to the team and said, oh, there's no way we can do it online. And imagine this, imagine that. And then we said, we're going to do this no matter what, right? So there was one insight which helped us. They didn't care whether the data was up to the minute, right? They were okay if the data was 1 week old. I mean, how many chartered accountants are shifting the neighborhood, that much, right? Yeah. So they said, look, I don't care how old the data is. I mean, you give me an answer in an instant, that's more important. So we created a solution where, over the weekend, we created some, the temporary structures and of data from which we could independently extract that in an instant. Basically arrange the organized data postcode wise, something so simple, but we could just give an answer. And the customers were so thrilled. And we also felt, hey, we made a difference to the community because someone could call and get an answer in an instant. So, I mean, that's an experience stands out in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great story. In fact, 2 takeaways for me is the first one is the empathy, that you were able to understand why they wanted in a minute.
Yeah.
Rather than saying that, okay, why technically it is not possible, or saying that 24 hours to 1 minute and all that.
Yeah.
And the second thing is this, I don't know if you want to call it the just enough technology, not over-engineer.
Yeah, right.
Again, engineering comes in, but they're not over-engineer. Yeah, great story, Anand. Since you also mentioned startups, one of the anti-patterns that I've seen, particularly in Bangalore, is that many people feel that, oh, I have an idea for an app and then I will do a startup. So you create a solution and then start looking for either a problem to solve or customers. So something that was implemented, you probably went through all the planning and all the rigor and everything else. But on the day of launch or after launch, you find that what was actually needed was probably not exactly what you built.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this takes me back to somewhere around 2001 when e-commerce was not that. Um, there was a boom, right? Of everyone thought this is going to take over the world at the time. It was not that prevalent in terms of the consumers. If anyone had gone through some of the places in MG Road, we used to have this big hoarding called stylecountry.com launching on this date, right? It was a fashion portal, and we were very passionate about that in our organization, and we designed it. We got into tie up with a logistics provider, connected with lots of very good suppliers, and we developed the software. And that software development itself was a great story. The founder actually told us this. I was heading software development for that company, and the founder actually told us, Anand, I get up in the morning around 5:30. I'll get my newspaper around 6. I'll have my coffee. I'll open the newspaper where there'll be a half-page ad on this platform that is launching today. And then I'll go into this particular portal and order a shirt. And we was...
I was just saying, oh.
Yeah. So we had this, he was very clear because he knew we were struggling to, finish it on time. And but he painted a nice picture for us. We said, he's going to be reading the newspaper in about half an hour. Let's come on, guys. Right. And we actually launched it. But I think the market was not ready, right, for that kind of a solution at the time. It was engineered, we had thought through it. We had all the logistics. We had some, guys from IIMs working the supply chain. All of that was done. But just, the market was not ready, right? And, we had to shut it down after about, maybe I think we had it kind of running for a year. And then we had to shut it down. So there was a bit of a, disappointment. It was a dream, right? Didn't quite happen.
Yeah,
a lot of lessons there, but
yeah. See, I'm very tempted to ask maybe a cliched kind of question.
Yeah.
You said that you are a feeling person.
Yeah.
So what were the feelings running through your mind when this happened? After putting in so much effort and the excitement, anticipation, and actually the market.
I think it was one of bit of a disappointment at the time, because I was head of engineering, but I was also part of the founding team, right? So, we really wanted to make that happen. And like I said, no software can make you feel good if it is not used, right? Like I said, I've always derived a lot of satisfaction when I see that software making a difference, right, to someone's life, right? So that way it was a bit of a disappointment. Yeah, we felt good about what we achieved, but we were a bit but the only consolation was there was a whole lot of other companies going bust, but we still survived. So there was the comfort, I guess, for us that we still had other services supporting the organization at the time. Yeah,
that's nice. So how has this kind of an experience I'm just probably jumping ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
You said currently you call yourself as a consultant, trainer, and coach.
Yeah.
So I would like to focus a little more on the coaching part.
Yeah.
Now, how has your own experience helped you evolve as a coach?
Okay, it's a good question. I think, I've had that one philosophy, I guess, throughout my early days, as well as even today, that I can get better at things and get to a point where I'll be good at it. Right? This is one place where the better comes before good. And so this has always helped me. So whenever I didn't do something well, I knew that I can only get better. And there was that determination saying, look, I'll get good at it. So coaching was one of those things. Initially, I did not quite understand what is the meaning of coaching. And when I understood what coaching was about, helping someone else unlock their potential. I mean, I just connected to it so much. And I said, look, this is something I should get better at. Right. So, I mean, even today, we do many things, and as part of PM Power Consulting, we do training, we do consulting, we do all kinds of things here. But the thing that gives me still the kicks is the one-on-one coaching, right? When you can sit in front of someone and then you think you can make a difference, and the firm belief that applying my mantra for them, just believing in them, saying that, okay, no matter where they are now, I know they will get better at it, right? And that the biggest reward is, when someone comes back and tells me, Anand, I made this small change, and that has made a huge difference in my life. So, I mean, that's just amazing, in terms of that sense of reward, the feeling of elation in me. Yay, I made a difference to someone else here. So I think that is still my passion, coaching one-on-one. We don't do a lot of it these days, but I still find that to be the most rewarding part of my journey with PM Power. And I'm still, I think I haven't reached where I want to reach there, continue to work on that.
Yeah. In the last few years that I've known you, yeah, I've always found you to be very, cheerful and happy. Now, when you are in a coaching situation, how do you handle, let's say, the call it the stress or the anxiety or disappointment that your coachee conveys to you?
Yeah, I mean, I've had times when some people have cried in a coaching session. I think it is you can't obviously be cheerful because when you're trying to relate to them, and then when you're empathizing, I think it is. I think what I found is I can get carried away, so I need to sort of keep a check on my own feelings when that happens, right? Only for one reason: if I don't, I'm not going to be useful for them, right? So empathy is one thing, but getting the same feeling for myself is not going to help. So I think, it's that awareness saying, hey, how do I feel now here? I remember that when that was a woman, right? When the woman cried, a little bit of tears rolled up in my eyes, but I had to sort of quickly recover and then get back into not so much cheering her up, but because when that happens, you don't know. The answer is not always, hey, you know what? Hey, cheer up is not the answer. That I have learned. But empathizing with them and let them get through that emotional phase. And people do when they let off a little bit like that, and they do sort of, compose themselves and then come back. Then, we can help them focus on, what they can be grateful for, even in that situation. Right? So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's about just the extending the empathy. While you need to be empathetic, you shouldn't get sucked into the situation.
Yeah.
So it's more of that.
Yeah.
And that leads me to both empathy in software development. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah, to be a little more specific, it is about as a role, whatever role I'm playing, whether it is an individual contributor or say someone who's a lead or a manager. What is the importance or role of empathy in creating good software?
Okay. I think probably the example I gave earlier about where I felt good about that, I think that probably is a good example. I found that when we develop software, I think we got to be able to put ourselves in the shoes of the person who will be consuming it, right? That I think is the key, right? If you're able to do that, I think you can create great software. I remember some of the best software that I've created have been when I have interacted multiple times with the actual user of that software, right? It's a bit harder these days. These days things are in the cloud, and the person who's going to use is going to be probably in some other part of the world, right? Who uses software. But I think the ability to understand that person, how they're going to use is a key. And I think we still have some way to go in that regard. Even when I use simple tools like even our mobile phones, I've come a long way. Or when I use ATMs or some of those things, there is always that trick, right? So, for example, I mean, today I use an ATM, right? Here it allows me to take the money out before I take the card out, right? I remember ATMs, which I could take the card out only after the money will come, right?
Uh-huh.
So I used to always think that earlier thing, because one of the things is, I've forgotten my card at the ATM. I don't know if you ever done that. I've done that once or twice.
Oh.
Because you get the money and then you're in a rush to go, right? The card is still there. And when you have to take the card out and then the money, you're not going to leave without the money for sure. Right?
Yeah, true.
So I find, that's a little bit of, somebody could think about that when they're designing software for ATMs, right?
That's
Anyway.
interesting. Never thought about it that way. Yeah, it's probably one of those mistake proofing. They call the poka-yoke in manufacturing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have any tips for developing empathy?
I think I've had only one tip, which I have followed for myself, right? Difficult to say if it works for others. I think see people as people. I think we don't do that. We don't see people as people, right? We see them as certain roles. Here is someone who's a security, I used to see this number of people who used to call security in our office security was very amusing. In the software company that I used to work with, people will say security for anything. I think the moment you see people as people, what I mean by see people as people is, look at people as, hey, here is that individual with certain goals and some aspirations and or some problems, challenges. When you see people as people, you see that. You don't just see, okay, here's a role with certain responsibilities, so the system should support those responsibilities. I think if we can see that a little bit more, is always been the key. I think I think the empathy starts there when you see people as people.
Yeah, sounds simple, but I guess it takes a long time to see that, because particularly in software teams, most of the time people are referred to as resources.
Yeah,
totally unemotional and doesn't treat them as people.
Yeah.
So that also brings a question on people.
Mm-hmm.
And since you've been working a lot with agile teams or helping teams become agile, how does this play out in, say, teams that are moving to quote unquote agile practices, about seeing each other as people?
I think as a coach for an agile team, I think one of the keys is patience. I think often as a coach, we move into this gear of helping them adopt the agile practices, right? There's a lot of emphasis on adopting practices. So we teach them how to do, planning, how to do retrospective, how to do this, how to do that. So there's so much of focus on how to, rather than, who's doing it. How do they feel about doing what they do? I really think as a coach, that is exactly where we need to sort of step in. And because many things, even the practice adoption is, people resist sometimes because of some of the insecurities they have, right? We have, I'll give you an example. We had this tester. Now, agile team, they were all told one team. That tester came to me one day and then asked me, oh my goodness, now will they expect me to do software development because I'm part of this team? Talk of, full stack engineer. And this guy said, look, Anand, I started out as like typically they do, thanks to a gray hair, they'll say Anand sir, right? And they'll say, I used to be a developer long ago, didn't quite enjoy it, didn't find myself having aptitude towards it, but I became a tester. And now they've made these agile teams. See, now everything the person does within the team has this particular fear. So that's what I mean by, you got to be able to see the people in the team. And when I say people, it's just not about, okay, instead of calling people resources, if you just call them as people or engineers, that's not good enough. It is actually seeing the individual in the team, right? And then see how they feel when they respond, when they react to some of the practices, what they talk about. And I think that is the key. And we know, Shiv, that any change in behavior takes time. We have to create some new experiences for them that will make them feel that it's okay, right? I'm going to be fine here. I can do well, and I can make a difference. So I think patience is probably the key there.
Very nicely put. And I know that you also have been facilitating some sessions related to mindfulness. Does that have a role to play in empathy or dealing with people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've learned that lesson on my own. Over a period of time, we know all these things about empathy or emotional intelligence. A lot of these things are important. But I think what mindfulness does, when you practice it consistently over a period of time, it helps you develop enough awareness, right? Enough self-awareness to be able to work through these things, right? See, I think people, it's not enough. Self-awareness is not enough. I think what mindfulness does, when it calms the mind down, you're able to think about, okay, if I change now, what could happen, right? So, there's little thought experiments, right? I think it helps people have these mini thought experiments in their head because, obviously, I find these thought experiments are very good. I mean, I personally try and do that. Okay, if I do this, what all could happen? Oh, maybe that can happen. Maybe that can happen. Okay, yeah. I think it's going to be okay. I mean, nothing disastrous is going to happen. I still will have a job and, I still will be valued and it's okay. I can always get better at things, right? So I think I definitely think, mindfulness has a huge role to play. But I also have a view about mindfulness in the sense it's not about just doing for 1 minute here or half a minute there. It's not about just 2 minutes there. That could be a starting point. I think, people need to go a little bit deeper in it and follow mindfulness with their own journaling, with their own introspection, with their own thought experiments. I think it really can become powerful. And often, we've actually been doing some mindfulness coaching as well with one of our customers. I've seen it can really be powerful to enable change in people and help them see their insecurities. I think it's okay, right? And I think the other thing is it can also help them develop a sense of gratitude, right? I've always found gratitude and the sense of gratefulness, if you like, is like a safety net, right? However, whatever fear you have the safety net. You know that there are so many good things and then you're not going to go below that, right? You can fall back on that. Or a safety net or a floor to stand on, if you say, whatever you fall, you're not going to go below that. There's a floor here that gives you that sense of gratitude, which is important. So, just to quickly say, I think mindfulness is fantastic, but people need to practice it for a while, form that habit, and do a little bit more than just 1 or 2 minutes of mindfulness.
Good. And would it be correct if I paraphrased what you called as the safety net as the key trust fabric in a team? That is, I know that somebody will be there to support me. We are doing this as a team.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. You've extended what I was talking about it in a sense of as an individual, how I feel. And I think what you say makes an absolute sense. That is why, we say psychological safety is so crucial when you're going through transformation, whether as a team or as an organization or as an individual. So I think it is the coach and the leadership's responsibility to create that safety net. yeah, that's a nice extension of what I was saying, Shiv.
Thanks. You mentioned that you used to play sport,
Yep.
hockey and bridge,
Yep.
right? How much of bridge, particularly,
Mm-hmm.
you think is applicable for software?
I hadn't really thought about that.
The reason I asked is I had some thoughts. I just wanted to validate it with
Okay.
a
All
good
right.
player. Yeah.
Yeah, I think see, the one thing that is common is you got to love both. There are people who get a little bit scared away by bridge. When they start off, they think, oh, it's just another card game, and they slowly realize, oh, it's not as simple as what they thought, and they had to learn a few ground rules, right? Like we say, it is simple to learn but difficult to master. So I think bridge and software are, in a sense, in the same bucket, right? Simple to learn but difficult to master. That is probably one thing I see common. I think the other thing is, however well prepared you are or how well experienced you are, there'll be that deal, there'll be that situation will throw you off balance, right?
Mhm.
And this is when I often tell people that you got to trust your intuition. You got to trust your gut sometimes and then go with it, right? And see what happens. So, and then just hope that you have a very understanding partner. And when it comes off, see, that's the thing, right? It's what happens with experience and practice. I think in both cases, right? You learn over a period of time, when to use intuition and when to, there's a simple technical solution here. Just go ahead and do that. You don't need intuition here. So I think that part plays a role. And just thinking aloud as you asked, because you asked me this question. The other thing is, bridge is a game of partners, right? We're a team, right? You got to work as a team. And sometimes the bets you make when you play bridge depend on, what you sense in the opposition, right? Sometimes it is in the where you are in the competition, right? Are you doing well? Are you doing badly? So
Yeah.
you take risks accordingly, depending on how you're doing. So yeah, I think some of those things are common in bridge. And I think another thing that is common is, I've always believed in bridge, you should think of nurturing your partnership, right, with your partner, I guess, right? I see too many bridge partners fighting, right, cursing each other, right? Yeah, to the extent, it's just ridiculous. If you played enough bridge, you see in competitions or even in clubs, they really, they thrash each other. And I think that's no way. Like, it's just like any other team in software. You got to really nurture teamwork. It will not happen by itself. And it is everyone's responsibility to nurture that team, right? Or the team spirit. So maybe there are some parallels. Thanks for probing. You said you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, essentially, even though for the last few years been playing, it's more like, the team that was playing, the three of them wanted a fourth person and I was kind of roped in.
Mm-hmm.
And very reluctantly, I started doing it.
Uh-huh.
So mine is also kind of gut feel based and all that. But what I found was that, like you said, the partnership.
Mm.
And one of the mistakes that I continue to make, which now the others have understood, is that when I bid, I only base it on my hand.
Huh.
Okay. Not assume that your partner is there to support me.
Yeah.
Or the other team has given some clues, and so this is probably a strategy for attack.
Mm.
Okay. So as a team, when we are working, that has helped me in appreciating that I can't do it alone myself always. I don't have to do it alone myself always.
Yeah.
That I can fall back on colleagues and friends and others that we do that. So I use that example when you tell teams that you're making a commitment for an iteration. It's a team commitment.
Yeah.
And then how you can take that. Now,
True.
the other is that there has to be some seriousness about the commitment, because by making more tricks, you don't get additional rewards always.
Yeah.
So just being very conservative doesn't help.
Yeah.
at the same time not being very rash.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so those are some things. Even though the number of cards is finite, the combinations and what can happen, how the game can flow,
Yeah.
means that you need to be present while playing.
Yeah.
Not watch your phone and do something else and say, oh, when I come to work, let me drop this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to keep track of where you are. Improves the concentration.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, those were some of my learnings.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true, Shiv.
Yeah. Now moving on, this is a question which probably needs a little bit of translation for those who don't understand Tamil. You said you come from Virudhunagar.
Yeah.
And Virudu is like a recognition, honor, award, reward, whatever, right? So is that the streak in you that when you said that you always want to do better, when you know that you haven't done that, as well as wanting to be an entrepreneur or trying your hand at doing that. So this is on the lighter side. It need not have to do with Virudhunagar.
Yeah.
But then I just couldn't resist asking that, is that something that is in your gene?
Yeah. I guess, I come from that town is, mainly people who have been there as merchants, essentially business community, right? So maybe there's a little bit of that is in my blood. But I said about, getting better at things. See, this is, I think, I've always believed this, that, I'm not this, super talented guy. I used to say the only thing I ever had talent for in life was actually hockey. That somehow seemed to come naturally to me. From when I was about 10 years old, I started learning. And I don't know, it just came naturally. But everything else in my life has been, has been about getting better at it. Right? May it be learning to speak English, for example, something as simple as that. When I came from my town, I didn't know. So learning that, or maybe learning to program, write software programs, or, learning to, as a consultant, learning to do coaching, or learning to interact with senior leadership, learning to work with founders of companies and being an entrepreneur. I mean, all of that. I just got this mantra that has worked for me all my life, that that wherever I am, wherever I stand, I can get better at it, right? And I just want to get good at it, right? I just choose those areas where I just want to get good at, and then follow that with action, right? My wife Radhika was always a phenomenal inspiration when it comes to taking action. She always reminded me, all this mantra is good, but if you don't take action, nothing happens. Right?
Practical.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just that combination that, you decide to get good at something, and just by getting better at it, one day at a time. But all that happens, when you take action. So the thing is, it doesn't bother me so much when I fail, or when I feel that, oh, I'm not as good as I want to be. I just always tell myself, oh, I can get better at it. So
yeah, that's very nice. I'm sure that many of your coaches have taken that from you.
Hope so.
Yeah. So that's about all I think we had time for today.
Thank you, Shiv.
If you have any other thoughts that you want to leave our listeners with?
I don't know. Maybe just one thought. I'll just closing. Maybe something else that has helped me all my career and life, which is about, how I feel about myself. So I found, success is always about how I feel about myself eventually. And if I can change how I feel about myself, I can have, instant success. So this is like, instant noodles. This philosophy helps.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shiv.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Anand. It's been wonderful. I'm glad that we finally got to talk, even though it got delayed. I think I'm energized. There are a lot of triggers that I've taken. So definitely, when there are questions, I'll pass them on to you.
Thank you, Shiv. And thanks for the opportunity to share.
If you like the show and would like to share your experiences with the community or know someone else who might want to do that, please get in touch with us at podcast@pm-powerconsulting.com. That is podcast@pm-powerconsulting.com.
Please rate this show on Podchaser, Stitcher, iTunes, or any other podcast client that you find us on. Please also share our episodes with your friends and others in your network. If you or anyone you know would like to be featured on our show, do write to us at this email address: podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.